Hi, I'm Catherine Reid, and coming up next on the St. Paul Forum, I'm speaking with Jote Taddese about his passion for books for Africa. That's next on the St. Paul Forum. Welcome to the St. Paul Forum. I'm Catherine Reid, and with me today is Jote Taddese. Welcome, Jote.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy you could join us. Well, I got very curious about the topic of immigration, and every time I get a chance to look around our community here in St. Paul and Minneapolis, we are surrounded by interesting immigration stories, and yours is a story from Ethiopia. I'd love it if you would just tell us briefly about your journey that brought you from Ethiopia to Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Sure. I was born and raised in Ethiopia in Oromia region, and I was born and raised in a time when political climate was very turbulent.
And the cause of the turbulence was civil. It was interior to the country.
Yes,
economically driven.
Ethnically, politically driven, many factors into it, and it was a time when a lot of people were getting persecuted just because of simple things such as their ethnicity, for example, where my dad actually was a political prisoner just because of that reason for 9 years, from the time I was about 6 years old.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the story started.
The beginning of
Exactly.
your journey. And so when your father was imprisoned, you had to leave your home town, is that correct?
That's correct. And when he was imprisoned, of course, the family kind of broke apart, so we had to move to a different part of town where my mom had to go and find a job and get herself established so that she can support her kids. It's myself and my two younger brothers.
Right, because you're the oldest.
That's correct.
And so you were, do you remember your father's imprisonment? Do you have a clear memory of that event?
I do remember actually when they came to look for him at home, and I was very young, and there were a lot of questions in my mind as to why there were a lot of soldiers looking for him at the house with guns and whatnot. So very curious mind, very young age, and I had a lot of questions in my mind, and not a very good feeling either. And then after that, really, we got to see him once a year. For the next 9 years, and we had to travel from a different part of the country as well, where we had to relocate. So it was a tough time.
Very difficult, absolutely. And I think for most of us, it's very difficult to imagine that kind of disruption and so forth. It's also difficult for us to imagine this huge leap from one very different part of the world to our part of the world. You said that at age 15, after this 9 years of imprisonment for your father, you relocated to Kenya as a family?
Yes. So my dad was a big advocate for education, and he's one of the people also who had the opportunity to really get a quality education and had the opportunity to get educated abroad. Because of that, when he was released from prison, he was able to get a very good job, in which actually gave him an opportunity to relocate to the neighboring country, Kenya. So because of that, all the family moved to Kenya, which I had the chance to attend a high school in Kenya and finish my high school before I came to the U.S.
Were you in school the whole time while your father was in prison then too?
That's correct. I was in school, although I was staying with relatives and family friends at that time, and then finally joining with my mom. But yeah, there was a brief time when I had to stay with different people, but still attending school.
So your father had already communicated this passion for education. What did that look like when you then moved to Kenya? What was the kind of school that you were in?
So when we relocated to Kenya, we ended up going to an American high school, actually, and my father's job at that time accommodated for us to go to a really good school in Nairobi. And through the school, I got to know about the American colleges. It was an American high school, and and started researching and studying about colleges here in the U.S., which really opened up an academic scholarship for me to come here.
Okay. And one other piece of this story includes your passion for soccer. We've talked about you were playing soccer as a young, which you didn't call soccer, obviously. That was, football is the British term, but what's the word for soccer in your language?
Well, it depends. If you say in the Oromo language, it's kubamilla, and in Amharic, it's egrr kwas. So I grew up playing soccer. I have a lot of passion. I love the sport of soccer, and I carried it into my high school years, in which I played varsity soccer, and so also my college years. And till today, I carried it into my adulthood life as well. So I managed to find some time to play soccer as well. So a huge fan.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if you would tell us the story about the way you used to play as a child in that town. I will come back to the education, but I'd like you to talk just briefly about how you made soccer balls.
There was once a time when I was very young. We lived in a very small town when still my dad was in prison, where my mom worked. And we used to have neighborhood teams where we would organize small soccer tournaments. Mind you, we were probably 4th or 5th graders. And we used to make soccer balls from scrap plastic bags and kind of melt them together with fire so that we make a very good soccer balls that we could use. So we had them all over the neighborhood, and we had kids from different neighborhoods come in and do a tournament and so forth. So that was one of my early childhood memories that I really still talk about.
So these were, as I understood it, plastic milk bags that were discarded, basically litter all around your community. So you were early recyclers, but also inventors. How many had that tradition of making the soccer ball been passed on? Had you learned it from someone else, or do you have any idea of how that came to you to make the soccer balls?
Really, I came to learn about how to make those kind of soccer balls when we moved into that town. And once I started making friends and found out that actually that's how they made soccer balls, and I started getting into it and actually starting to make it myself as well for my team and for other teams as well. So it was really out of necessity that we started to be innovative in a way to create something that we could all share.
Mm-hmm. So that early light of collaboration, also something you've carried with you. My understanding was that you chose teams regularly for your games and your tournaments. How did that look when you were?
That was really one of my favorite activities of forming a team. Is I always liked to be the person selecting players. In my mind at that time, really is a form of strategizing in terms of who has what skill and why do I need this person or that person. One person could be a good defender, a person could be a good goalkeeper, or a good forward player. So that was really a favorite activity for me, to be one of the people to form a team.
Yeah. So after this experience with soccer and so forth, and this passion for education, you started hearing about schools in the U.S. Did your parents want you to come to this country for your education, or how did that look? Because you had already left one country, gone to another, so this was going to be your third stop, essentially.
It was really my parents' wish as well for me to come to the U.S. to get a quality education. Like I said, my dad was, and my mom was very huge advocates for education. They always, one of the biggest reminders for me from my dad was, always he talked about how he went to prison. Although he lost 9 years of his life, when he came out, he was able to still land a good job. And he refers back to because of the education he got. So that kind of instilled a big value in my mind about education, and the fact that nobody can take it away from you.
Mm-hmm. So soccer featured into your decision where to come in this country to come for education, as I understand it. You were looking both for a good quality of education, but you also had the question whether you were going to remain a soccer player. Is that right?
That's correct. Because of my passion for soccer, actually, there was a point in time when I was asking myself, I should really look for colleges or universities that give soccer scholarships in the U.S. And I was pretty serious about it, and I started looking aggressively, and there was actually a couple of opportunities that came up. That's when I really sat down and talked with my dad, and again, he kind of had me grounded again, saying I should really think about it very seriously, because although getting a soccer scholarship is great, what if I get injured, or what if something happens? Then that goes the opportunity of going to a school. So although I was not very pleased with that conversation or happy about it, but after so many years that when I think about it right now, that was one of the greatest advices that I got.
So where did you end up in for your college education?
So I came to the U.S. I actually went to school in Iowa, and I went to the first 2 years. I went to a small college called Waldorf College in Forest City, Iowa, very small college, and then I finished my final 2 years of college in Luther College in Decorah, Iowa, about 2.5 hours from Minneapolis.
And what was the focus of your study? What did you decide your passion was educationally?
I've always been passionate about technology, and when going to school in Nairobi, my dad had a laptop, and where got my curiosity really going, and I used to play around that laptop in terms of figuring out how things are working. So I kind of pursued that passion, and I studied computer science in undergraduate school, and also later on I decided to pursue a graduate school in the same field of software engineering.
If you're just joining us, I'm speaking with Jote Taddese about his passion for books for Africa. So you came to the Twin Cities. You've been working for Target, as I understand it, and let's talk a little bit about how this light for education has turned into your interest in doing something for your home country. Tell us a little bit about the books and the library project.
Absolutely. So back in the end of 2011, my family and I took a trip back to Ethiopia, and I really got to visit a lot of family, friends, reconnected with relatives, because it was a trip after 18 years for me.
It had been 18 years since
you've
been home?
It had been 18
wow,
years, so you could
time.
imagine that it was very nostalgic and emotional at times as well.
I imagine, yeah.
And I also went back and made it a point to visit areas where my father was born and raised in all the surrounding areas and so forth. So one thing that stood out for me, and I actually went to visit the very elementary school that my dad went to. And I witnessed that there is a huge need of basic educational needs there. So such as books, basic pencils, pens, notebooks, and so forth. I spoke with teachers. I spoke with parents. I spoke with kids about what is it that they want to do when they grow up. What are the biggest challenges? Really coming from the teachers. Everything went back to just the basic logistics that they need for good literacy, good education. So that really put a very big thing in my mind, saying, okay, at least an individual, what is it that I could do to help make this situation better? And came back here, and I've been coordinating with the diaspora community here, who were also familiar with those areas, who are born and raised in those areas, who have connections and relatives and so forth, and saying, how about we really put together a project to send books to these schools so that kids could benefit from it directly. And started a library project 3 years ago. The actual library was built and completed back in 2009. And this past 12 months, I've been working on with the local community to send 22,000 books to this library that we built. So this is the first library in that town, the town of Nedjo, which is about 342 miles from the capital city of Addis. Still in Oromia region. And there will be over 65,000 students, young boys and girls, who who would benefit from this library directly.
Wow, 65,000. So this is the town your father grew up in that you're
Correct.
supporting. And who was involved in building the actual, this is a physical library that's a standalone building?
Yes, so this is a physical library that's a standalone building that was built with the effort of local communities back there in Nejo who live there, really installing the sense of ownership and saying that the community believes that this is actually for us, for our community, for our kids. And also we were organizing fundraising events here in North America, in Germany, Australia, Canada.
Really?
So it was really built with a 100% donated funds.
Wow.
So, and we were happy to see that the construction was completed. Now we're really working on the kind of the final push to get
This
the library.
collection. You want this
Exactly.
collection of the materials that they can care for.
Yep.
One thing that I'm not clear about is the books that you send are in any language, or how does that, it doesn't really particularly matter what language, or are they specifically hoping to learn English?
These are English reference books, actually. English books in the field of math, science, chemistry, for elementary, middle school, and high school kids. And the way we did it actually is we partnered with a local nonprofit organization called Books for Africa. So Books for Africa has been sending millions and millions of books to African countries. And so we formed this partnership where Books for Africa donates these free books, and the recipient organization actually would handle the shipping fee. So really the fundraising we did was to make sure that we cover the cost to get the it's a 40-foot sea container of books and get it over there in safe and sound, and also making sure that it gets to the library and the library is actually operating and starting to provide benefits for the community.
So you've raised, I know one of the things you did was decided to run for you did some running to get some support. Is that right? Is that how you?
Well, so the running that I've been doing, yes, I've picked up distance running recently, and I'm always a kind of person who I want to find a cause for something that I do. And when I started running, I decided that I wanted to do a marathon. And joined a local organization. Actually, this is a global organization, World Vision. This is a cause that we ran for to provide clean water for Africa as well.
Okay.
So it's not related directly to the books.
It's a different project. Okay.
Yes, that's a different project. This Books for Africa effort was really a very clear collaboration and coordination with the local community here in the Twin Cities, and as well as supporters, individuals, churches, nonprofit organizations here in the Twin Cities as well as elsewhere.
So tell us a little bit more about how you found out about Books for Africa, and how did they get so focused on this literacy project? Can you speak to that a little bit?
So when I got back from our trip, one thing that I really did some research on is, okay, what is the best way to get the books for this library that we just built? Because the library was sitting empty. And started doing researches and talking to people locally here, and I came to learn about Books for Africa. So there was a small partnership that was done with Books for Africa a few years ago, but we just did not understand the extent to which we could partner with Books for Africa. I went down there, talked with them about the project that we're looking to do, and apparently they already have a large experience, a vast experience in sending books to Africa and really handling logistics and so forth. So it made sense that to form this partnership, and also they would help us ensure that the books actually get there.
Well, my understanding too is that sustainability of the project, this idea of the community owning it, has been important to your thinking, and I wonder if you could speak a little bit more to what's important to you about that, and how have you been able to accomplish that? Because I think many of us think, oh, we're doing our giving, we kind of send those gifts off and it's distant and we don't know what's happened. We're kind of trusting that process, but we also hear the stories of things that never get there, or we sent the wrong things to people. So how did you look at that process?
So really, it's been quite a journey in terms of really figuring out what is the best approach and making sure that the help that goes from here is practical. It's something that people could actually find value in. What we did is we formed a very close partnership with local communities in those regions as well, in the town of Najo, people who actually are born and raised in those towns, who understand the local needs on a day-to-day basis. So we would actually get directions in terms of what's really needed over there directly from them, and instead of us trying to figure out what they need over there. That proved out to be a very practical way to especially approach a project like this. And the second one is ownership, accountability, and really transferring some of this ownership and accountability over to the local community abroad. Also ensured that things get done, and also they could be sustained as well.
And I've been hearing that, I've been interested in the little free libraries that have been popping up around the area. I don't know if you've seen any of them, but they're little, almost mini houses that people put on their property, but they put books inside and they're there for anyone to take. I just was reading, I've been wanting one at my house for my alley, but I've been reading that Books for Africa is now partnering with them as well, and that there's, I'm not quite sure if you've heard about that part of the partnership, but I think there's another little element to it where they're trying to also create this momentum around expanding the libraries in Africa.
Exactly, and that really clearly shows that there is a huge need for basic books in Africa, and that is the kind of partnership we would like to continue to form with Books for Africa. Right now, really what we focused on is really designing and implementing this project and seeing it through, and then take the experiences that we gain from this project and apply it in other areas similar to those, because this is a different model in terms of how to think about libraries that Books for Africa is trying, in which I think is really the right step in the right direction.
When you say it's a different model, what is about this relationship between the community and those who are giving? Is that the part you mean?
That's one aspect of it, and the other aspect of it is really what are creative ways of making books more accessible, available for local communities.
So that creativity, that like those little free libraries that,
correct.
You know, when I look at it in my neighborhood, I think, you know, we all have books, you know, there's so many of them, we really need, I liked it when I saw that you could put that effort into a place that needs it so much more than we do.
Exactly.
I can get books so easily. So if people are interested in, I know you said that you've now succeeded in getting that container filled, and it's on its way. So when will it arrive, and what will happen when it gets there?
Good question. So we've completed our fundraising effort.
How much did you raise?
That was a little over $23,000.
That's fantastic.
So that's a full container of books, and actually we're also including 25 computers to have a dedicated small computer lab area in that library as well, which is huge because for an area that had never had a library, that this is a pretty big step. We are working on the timing right now in terms of when the shipment will leave the U.S. and as you know, that getting a port into a different country and all the port authorities and logistics and processes. So that's one thing that we need to make sure that it's completed so that we don't see or get any problems once the container arrives in Ethiopia.
Okay. So there'll be more to the story once it actually arrives and you find out what happens.
Absolutely, and we hope to see, one is, you know, once the container gets there, you know, really the culture of what does it take to run a library, how do you run a library, how do you maintain a library, how do you operate a library, is brand new. So we hope to provide some guidance and some logistical support in that and really get it off the ground so that the community and the local municipality will be able to run it independently.
One tip I heard from someone locally, he's at Gordon Parks High School where there are a lot of kids who haven't learned the rules very well or don't like rules. They encouraged them to take the books out. They created a library, and then they just said, if you bring it back, you get pizza. So, you know, you could just have food as a way to make sure that the books come back and they keep circulating. But sometimes just really pragmatic things instead of the rules we've established ourselves may not work at all.
And really, these are the new things that we're excited that we know we're going to be learning new things in terms of what are the most, you know, creative ways to make this thing really work. There wasn't any library culture, so people don't know what it means to check out a book and bring it back. So initially, we may have to have people come in and actually use the library, read the books there without checking them out. And then how do we organically start to introduce the value of books and the value for people to be able to check them out and then bring them back. What are the incentives for individuals to bring books back and so forth. So a lot of exciting prospects coming.
So people can check out Books for Africa's website, I assume, to get at least to know how to support Books for Africa in general. You said your specific website for this project is no longer up, but will be coming back in the future?
Exactly, and we've been in this project for 12 months through this partnership. There's a lot that we've learned, and actually we are now in the process of planning another project for 2013 on a bigger scale and to bring about a bigger impact.
Fantastic. And so have you set the goals for how much you want to raise this year, this next time round, or how other people can help?
That's actually in the works. We're looking to potentially send 2 containerful books. So that's about
So
44,000. Yep,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to double that. And,
Mm-hmm.
and again, it's been a learning experience. So we are really taking a bottom-up approach, how to make it work organically and kind of grow slowly.
So when you think about this in terms of the way you've balanced your own work life, your family life, and this particular project, what kind of legacy are you hoping to create with the way you're shaping this process for yourself?
And again, I go back to some of the concept that really keep me grounded. That is opportunities for education. So, you know, like I said, my dad was really one of the recipients for this opportunity through various means, and then I think about what that has done to his family, and of course to myself, and then what it would potentially do to my kids as well. Because my son, who is 7 years old, is well aware of this project. He always talks about it to his classmates. He's like a second grader, about how his family is working on setting up a library in Africa. So it's already kind of taking hold, and I hope to leave a legacy that really always advocates for paving a better way for better literacy and education.
That's fantastic. Well, I think that this particular project will capture a lot of people's imaginations, and I think you've really thought about a lot of the sustaining aspects of it. So it'll be interesting to see. I think we'd like to get some pictures and see what that library looks like and see what happens when the books arrive. And will you be going back to see it? I know you were there recently, but are you going back again?
Absolutely, and this is something that I'm continuing to talk with my family and say what is the most appropriate time to really go see some of the effort that we've been putting together. So it'd be great to see kind of the fruit of your effort. So we're planning. We don't have exact timing yet, but we hope to be there.
It'll be on the horizon.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. That's all we have time for. Come back again next week for the St. Paul Forum.